this is Mr. Everything. I'm coming at you with another Wargaming and miniature video. In this video, we're going to continue on with our painting of our 148 Tactic miniatures. In this video, we're going to be painting Wolfgang Schmidt. Wolfgang Schmidt has a little bit of a winter camouflage, as well as a camouflage schmuck as well. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to use steel gray. Steel gray, it's a very light colored gray. And let's go ahead and get some paint on my brush here. And it looks like I've already started. I've hit his helmet a little bit already. Let's go ahead. As you can see, his helmet has a white camouflage cover on it. This steel gray is the base coat for it. Okay, we got, and I wanted to make sure I kind of went over the lips of each of his edges of his helmet, like as if it was tucked underneath. Okay, looks good. Now also his pants are going to be white, so let's go ahead and hit his winter pants. If you're curious, I primed all my German models with self-etching primer. There's two tones of gray. There's like a steel gray version that looks a lot like this, and there's the gray that I used, which is like a really dark gray. It's really good for basing Germans because of the gray base of most German uniforms. Either gray or field gray. When I first saw it, I thought it was actually field gray because it's got like a little bit of green in it. But through further examination, I'm going to say no, it's just a dark mid-gray. It's just a mid-gray. Okay, now the models I'm painting for my Germans currently are the 26 Volksgrenadiers, which, if you're familiar with the Battle of the Bulge, the 2nd Panzer, Panzerlehr, and the 26 Volksgrenadier attacked in the area around Bastogne. And then surrounded Bastogne and gave General McAuliffe the ultimatum, which he replied, nuts. And so the game, 148 Tactics, focuses on that time period. The 26th, the 101st. I'm kind of surprised they don't have the 28th Division. Well, I guess the tanks, if there were any, would be 28th Division. Okay, so we got his pants and his hat, or his helmet cover, a steel gray. And then I'm going to set that down and wait for it to dry, and we'll be back for the next color. Alright, now the next color on Wolfgang Schmidt is going to be German Army gray-green. We're going to paint that over his camouflage schmuck. This is the undercoat, or the primary base coat of the smock. The camouflage will actually go on top of that. So this is kind of a light gray, green. Be sure not to get it on the white or the light gray. But it's okay to get it on the weapons. Don't get it on his hands either. Remember, again, it's okay to get it on his gear because you haven't painted the gear yet. And if you miss a spot, it's okay because you're going to come back over it with some camouflage later. And you can hit up any spot you think you might have missed. I'm also hitting his hood, the little winter scarf hoodie balaclava. Okay, I think I got every part of the smock. Okay, so we're going to set him off to the side and let him dry, and we'll be right back. All right, now the next color we're going to use on Wolfgang is for his boots, and we're going to use the German camouflage black brown. The late war Germans did not wear black boots. They wore brown boots. But they were extremely dark brown, almost black. And jack boots, which were black, were more of a dress boot, and that was early war Germans would wear that. Like Blitzkrieg Germans would have jack boots. But when it came to the late war Germans, the ones around Bastogne and things like that, they were wearing brown combat boots. These boots were built specifically for combat, not marching. Now I'm only painting the bottom of the boot because there is a belt buckle across the top of the boot, and that's a little bit lighter brown, so we're just going to use the black brown for the bottom half of the boot, and then we're going to let that dry before we move on to the other half. All right, now what we're going to do is wood brown from Army Painter. We're going to paint a few things, and not all of them are wood. But what we are going to paint is entrenching tool and bayonet handle. We're also going to paint the rifle's stock. And I want to paint the canteen cover, not the canteen cup. Okay, so we're going to let those dry before I move on to the next color. Okay, the next color we're going to use is Splinter Blotches 2. It's kind of a dark brown. It's part of the Panzer Aces line. let's go ahead, and I'm going to use a little bit finer brush on this. In this case, I've been using a 2 brush for everything up until this point. I'm going to use a little bit finer brush. This is a 3.0. It's not really super important what size brush you use because this is camouflage, so it's going to be kind of all mixy matchy anyway, so don't worry about it. Now on the smock, if you look closely at his camo pattern, they are there is a number of brown spots or splotches on there. Now they're not round or circular, they're very angular, so you need to put like little triangles. Okay, and just put them triangles all over the place, and you can not worry about the straps underneath, because if you paint over the strap, it's okay, because you're going to be painting the strap anyway, a different color. Remember, triangles everywhere. And you might have to experiment a little bit, unfortunately. Maybe on a different model, or maybe on a piece of cardboard or something, to get the right amount of triangles for the size of the model that you're working with. And the size of the triangles, actually. Okay, so we got triangle. Okay, I should probably have one right about here. Now, a sleeve triangle should not cross onto the jacket triangle. The sleeve and the jacket are two different pieces of fabric. There we go, Splinter blotches. So we're going to let that sit off to the side and let that dry, and then we'll be back with the next color. All right, now the next color we're going to use is the Splinter blotches 1. It's a green, but it looks very bright green here, right? But when it dries, it actually dries kind of darkish. So we're going to go ahead and use that. Now, on this model, you're going to use it about half as much as you used the brown. So just put them in various spots, but understand you're trying to use less green, almost no green on this model. You just want to give it a little bit of green. Try not to cover your brown. Remember, use triangles. If you make a mistake, don't worry about it. It's camouflage. Camouflage is of various shapes and sizes and patterns, not to be fritted. All right, and then you just let that green dry a bit and it'll darken up, and we'll be right back. All right, the next color we're going to use is German Camo Beige. German Camo Beige we're going to use for the gaiters of the combat boots. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at the model, get some of this paint. Here we go, and we're going to just touch up under the trousers on the boots that have the belt buckle strap gaiter looking thing. Okay, so we're going to gaiter. We'll just call those gaiters. All right, we're going to set that off to the side and let that dry a little bit. There are other things that will be this color, but those are going to be painted later. No? Let's paint them now. Hang on. I got green ochre for that, but I think I'm going to paint the camel beige. All right, we're also going to paint his MP40. No, these are not. This is not an MP40. The STG. We're going to paint his STG ammo pouches this color. And remember, this is the base coat, so when we go to do the wash, it's going to bring out all the highlights. And he should have pouches on both sides. There we go. Okay, and one more thing, his haversack. So his magazine pouches and his haversack are the camo beige. All right, we're going to set that off to the side, let that dry a little bit. All right, now the next color we're going to use is Black Green by Poly S. Black Green by, Poly Shade. Now the black green is another really dark green color, but we're going to use it for his gas mask canister. As well as his mess kit. Anything on his back that is metallic. And his canteen cup. Perfect. So really just those three things. Maybe his belt. All right, so we're going to let that dry and we'll be right. No, wait, I didn't hit the top of this canteen. There we go. I'm going to let that dry and then we'll be back in just a minute. All right, the next color we're going to use is Black Licorice. And it's going to be for like straps and buckles and everything, and his weapon. So the first thing we need to do there's a pouch right there. And if you haven't noticed, I switched to a 10-0 brush. The straps on the back. They can be a little tricky. Now I'm painting the the entrenching tool cover. It's the top spade shape of it. I'm painting that black. Okay, the last thing to go is the metal parts on the weapon, including the magazine. Front and back. Top and bottom. Okay. He's got his black. Set him off to the side, let him dry before we move on to the next color. Alright, now the next color we're going to use is natural steel. Basically, I'm just going to cover the weapon where I had already painted black. I'm just going to cover it with natural steel. But I'm only going to kind of, maybe I'll leave a little black showing, maybe I won't. There it is. And if any black is showing, that's fine. Alright, we're going to set that guy to the side, let him dry, and we'll be right back. Okay, the next color is not really a paint, it's a wash. We're going to put a light tone on the Wolfgang. Now I watered it down, so it's 2 drops light tone, 1 drop water. Alright, so, and really I'm just going to slather it on there. Let me get these other models out of the way. Don't need to say that, but hey, what the heck. Alright, so here we go. Let's go ahead and slather it on. Okay, it's on the entire model. We'll let this model sit off to the side and dry, and then we'll pick up probably tomorrow because it's getting super late and washes take forever to dry anyway. So through the miracle of movie magic, it'll be just a second. All right, now it is the next day after the wash has dried. The wash has taken the model and brought down all the colors, including the pants and the helmet cover that we're getting ready to paint. Now we're not going to just put a stark white on there. We're not going to put whiter than white on there. What we're going to do is we're going to put a light gray contrast on there. This light gray will make that look like a worn white and not just some bright ass brand new white uniform. All right, so let's take a little bit of this light gray, and when we paint it on, we're going to paint it under the strap. And remember, we're only going for highlights, really. We're looking to hit raised areas and leave a little bit of the dark gray and wash underneath to kind of give it a three-tone effect. All right. Now the top is smooth, right? But what we need to do is kind of bring it down some of the raised areas. Because it's like a fabric that's been laid over the helmet and tucked under an elastic band. Kind of like that. Whoop, yeah, that looks good. Kind of like that. Let's do a little bit more. With the underside. Okay, and it gives you a almost white helmet cover. All right, let's do that on the pants. Might be a little bit more difficult, but because there's going to be larger areas that are smooth. But paint the fabric. What I'm saying by that is if you see a raised area of cloth, that's what you paint. Don't paint down inside any of the folds. white is like one of the hardest colors to really get right, to really paint right. Now, if this was like a fantasy figure or maybe even a medieval knight, I might use an actual like vintage white or an off-white instead of this light gray. But because it's a World War II figure, these guys crawl around in the dirt, you know, their uniforms get old. Now you could dry brush this technique, but what'll wind up happening if you dry brush is you'll get streaks. And it won't be as accurate. Now this is time consuming, as you can see, but it pays off in the end. I noticed some of my camouflage got on his pants, and this is a perfect opportunity to correct that mistake. Alright, now what I'm doing is I'm going back over just to make sure that I hit every little thing. Right here under the knee, I missed. Yeah, the knees, you'll notice the knees stretch the fabric. So they're usually a place you want to highlight. Knees and elbows. Alright, so you got his white pants with a little bit of gray shading inside there. Right, it might be a little bit much on this leg, so let's touch that up a little bit. There we go. Yep, we're going to leave it like that. We're going to let that sit off to the side and dry, and then we'll move on to the next color. All right, now the next color we're going to do is we're going to do a sling, and we're going to do it under German camouflage orange ochre. Let's go ahead and take a look. Now his sling is kind of tucked behind the weapon, so you got to kind of look for it pretty good. And it's right over his hand. All right, so there's his sling. And now a little bit of that sling is evident on the other side. All right, so we're going to set that guy off to the side before I move on to the next color. All right, now the final color on Wolfgang here is going to be Field Gray from Tamiya. And all I'm doing is painting the base. The edge of the base, not the whole base. Yeah, I'm just painting the edge of this base. I mean, you could leave it the primer if you wanted, but this will make it more uniform. It'll clean up any wash that might have dripped on it or any of the other colors you might have accidentally put on there. Okay, so we're going to set that off to the side. We're going to let that dry. All right, now the next step to, or the first step to basing the model will be to apply white glue and then texture before we apply any grass. All right, so I use my Tester's synthetic brush here, and what we're going to do is we're going to apply glue to the base. We want to make sure we see white everywhere. Along the top of the base. Now I'm not using a watered down PVA, I'm using straight Elmer's, which I think is basically watered down PVA. It's not like a concentrate or anything. Alright, so we got PVA over everything. Just drop a couple of rocks on there, not a whole lot, just enough to give it a few, and then sprinkle the ground texture onto it. And then as it's sitting there like that, we're going to let that dry. So I'm going to set that in a little box here. Alright, the next step is we're going to use Battlefield Grass Green from Army Painter. That is my preferred flock. Alright, so we're going to take our model, Wolfgang Schmidt. We're going to use, again, we're going to use our synthetic brush. We're going to apply grass to about 2/3 of the base. We're not going to brush it on. We're just going to pat it down so it kind of goes into the rock. We're not going to cover any of the large stones that we placed. We are going to put grass beside it. Sure. Now remember, we're doing about 2/3 of the base. And we're just putting it in random patterns. Okay, that actually looks pretty good. And then what we do is we take the grass and we just sprinkle it on, let it drop onto the glue. But we do cover the entire base. And then what we do is we set this model off to the side, and we're going to let that grass soak into the glue for about 30 minutes before we shake it off. All right, here's Wolfgang with his flocked base and his white helmet cover and pants, his camouflage smock. All right, looking good. All right, now here is all 7. You got your 4 starters and then the 3 expansion guys. So tell me what you think about the way I painted these guys, and in the comments below. And be sure to also go back and check out my 101st Paratrooper painting videos as well. If you like these videos, go ahead and like and subscribe to my channel and continue on watching, because we're going to paint some of the terrain next. All right, and I'll catch you next time.